Hey, what's up you guys? This is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, I make videos about social work, career, business, and lifestyle. I am a social worker. I specifically focus on macro social work, and a lot of the videos that I make are helping people to decide what area of the social impact space they want to go into and how they can navigate growing their career in the social impact space. I talk a lot about my experience in my MSW program, but I think one thing I have not shared with you guys, or maybe some of you know, but I was actually about to and was en route to entering a dual MSW MPH, which stands for Masters of Public Health program. The only reason I did not go this route was because it was very new at my university and they still had a lot of things that they needed to iron out before they were clear on exactly, what the ins and outs of that dual degree program would be. But in that process of doing research and figuring out if I wanted to indeed go that route, I did learn quite a bit about the Masters of Public Health program and what it stood for, and hopefully I can share that information in this video and help anyone who is trying to decide whether or not they should get an MSW or a Master's of Public Health degree. The two degrees share a lot of similarities. They share a lot of differences as well, which is what I'm going to talk about in this video. And also for the second year of my MSW program, I did my field placement at the Office of Public Health in the city that I was in. So that also gave me an understanding of what the field of public health is all about. So I want to leverage that expertise for this video as well. I do want to talk a little bit about my thoughts on dual degree programs. I did do a little research, and people who did the dual MSW MPH degree said that, it did help them out as far as jobs were concerned, but it seemed like they ended up just kind of working in traditional social work jobs, and the only way that dual degree really benefited them was from the background knowledge that they had acquired. They said that it helped them to be more marketable, but as far as being paid higher, I didn't really see a lot of evidence from my research that it really helped with that. So definitely do your own research, but that's kind of my thoughts on that. It does lead to more time as well as, more money because you are in school for longer. Often it takes you 3 years to complete that dual degree program instead of that usual 2. Thus, it's going to be a more expensive pursuit. So in my opinion, if getting that dual degree is not going to yield a higher salary, I don't really see a lot of strong evidence behind getting that dual degree, because you can just go the MSW route and leverage other training opportunities to learn about the field of public health. As I mentioned, I did intern at the public health office my second year. So school isn't the only way to get additional knowledge. Just consider your unique financial situation when you're determining whether or not a dual degree program is for you. Okay, so at the start of this video, I want to just give some basic definitions around what social work is and what public health is. The primary definition of social work is that it is a profession focused on enhancing human well-being, helping people to meet their basic and complex needs, connecting people with resources, and there's a special focus on helping people from vulnerable populations, oppressed groups, and those living in poverty. On the other hand, public health has been defined as the science and art of preventing diseases. So the goal of public health is to prolong the lifespan of individuals, improve people's quality of life through organized efforts, and teaching people how to make informed decisions for the benefit of society and communities. So I think since we're all living through, a very interesting time in the world, that can really help you to understand the work of someone working in public health or someone who gets a Master's of Public Health degree. A lot of those individuals are working on studies and doing research, trying to develop strategies for keeping people safe through these times. So I think the overarching similarity between someone who studies to get their MPH and someone who studies to get their MSW is that they want to do work that will lead to the betterment of society. But I think, the way they go about it or the way they're trained on it is a little bit different. So in social work, it's more focused on mental and behavior health and overall societal functioning. But when it comes to those who study public health, they're looking at things from more of a medical standpoint, and there's a greater emphasis on macro and biology and medicine. So for example, I know there are a lot of social workers who ultimately end up doing therapy, right? So they're really focused on the mental and behavioral side of humanity and people, while those who study to get their MPH is more focused on like the human body and things from a more biological, epidemiological standpoint. I don't even know if that's a word. They're more interested in epidemiology, which is the study of diseases and keeping people free of disease. So you have to ask yourself, are you more interested in mental and behavioral health, or are you more interested in that physical health? Both are interconnected and important, but depending on what you study, you're going to have a greater emphasis on one or the other. And when I was doing research, I kept finding information that said that those who went to school for their Masters of Public Health look at things from a more macro or policy perspective. And me as a macro social worker, I saw that as being kind of confusing because, I mean, we do too. So that's something I still have questions about. So yeah, I think the important thing to note there is that there are some similarities and some overlap between getting a master's in public health and getting an MSW and focusing specifically on the macro level. And there are also macro social workers who do focus on public health. Some common jobs that you can get after you get your Master's of Public Health is becoming an epidemiologist, being a disaster and emergency specialist, a biostatistician, which I would not want to do because I'm not great at math, and also working as a public health educator, where I think often macro social workers tend to kind of overlap with those in the public health spectrum because we also can work as a public health educator as well. Some people with this degree also become an infectious disease specialist. On the other hand, some popular jobs that you can get after you receive an MSW is working in substance abuse counseling, working as a mental health specialist, in school social work, in child welfare, in community work or urban planning, and the list goes on and on. But I just want to give you guys a taste of certain jobs that you can have in both areas. And I think it's important to note that social work does have that focus on helping vulnerable populations and on social justice, right? So if that's something that you definitely want to take into your career and you want to learn more about, I think social work would be the way to go. As far as the schooling requirement, it's pretty much the same for both fields. You have to dedicate 2 years in order to get your master's degree, 3, of course, if you do the dual degree program. But there is a difference around how you become trained during your master's degree program. For your MSW, that field placement and that hands-on experience is very important. So there's a certain amount of hours of on-the-ground field placement you need to become an MSW. But when it comes to getting your MPH, some of them also do internships or field placements. But what's more important is completing a capstone project or a research thesis project before you graduate. Also, let's talk a little bit about how the information you're learning in grad school differs. When you're getting your MSW, you're really going to be learning a lot about theories on human social development, how to create and implement certain social welfare programs and community programs, and different social science research methodologies. So although you don't really focus as much on research, you still have to get that research experience. On the other hand, if you get your MPH degree, you're really going to be learning about how public health programs specifically are designed and implemented, and learning strong communication skills so you can teach the public on how to have safe public health practices. So big emphasis on that communication piece. Okay, so I want to do a rundown on some similarities and then some differences. Similarities is that folks in social work as well as public health are both going to be evaluating the effectiveness of different programs, right? Because we want to make sure the programs we're developing are actually helping people. Both areas also work to make healthcare more accessible to people. It's important to us both. Both fields are helping to better society and are improving the welfare of individuals. Let's talk a little bit about the licensure process though. So So there are strict licensure guidelines as far as becoming a licensed social worker. You don't need a license to do all jobs in social work, but there are going to be a nice amount of jobs, specifically those direct practice or therapeutic focused jobs, where you do have to be licensed as a social worker. But when I did research, I found that there isn't like a Master's of Public Health license, but there are some certifications that are beneficial for people who study in an MPH program to get. And the National Board of Public Health Examiners do have a credential certification. So it's basically a credentialing program that those with an MPH can join in order to have stronger qualifications under their belt. Okay, so let's talk about salaries. I did research on this, and the standard salary of someone who has completed an MSW program is about $56,000 a year. And of course, this varies on location. It varies depending on the type of social work that you do, etc. If you get your MPH or your Master's of Public Health degree, your average salary is going to be about $70,000 a year. Of course, once again, this varies. You can see that this is about a $15,000 difference. And something interesting that I found about the difference between getting your MSW and an MPH is that often after you get your MSW, you're called a social worker, right? Like that is a title that is recognized and well known. But once you get your MPH, that's more of a general degree. So more likely than not, you're not going to be called a public health professional or a public health worker. There's really a lot of titles and jobs that falls under public health that you would probably go by instead of a public health worker. So for example, an epidemiologist or a biostatistician. So I thought that was really interesting because even though social workers can decide to go down different pathways, we all are called social workers still, right? Like that's still a title that we all share. It just seems like social work as a profession is more specialized in a sense, and it has the code of ethics and it has the shared core values. When you study to get your Master's of Public Health degree, you really have to find out what path you want to take because it is such a general degree. And I've mentioned in past videos that social work is also pretty general, but it seems that getting your MPH is even more general than social work. Something interesting that I wanted to point out, if anyone does want to correct me or you feel that I'm saying something wrong, let me know if there is a shared code of ethics or title that people are called once they get their MPH degree, because I would be very curious to know. All right, you guys, as you can see, the sun is setting, so I need to wrap this video up. But in conclusion, I think there are a lot of similarities between being a Master's of Public Health student and being an MSW student. And I think when you're making the decision around choosing one over the other, it really does depend on what your core values and interests are. If you're interested in working with people who are below the poverty line or people who are dealing with oppression or social justice issues, I think social work is the way to go. If you're more interested in mental health and behavioral well-being, I think you're going to learn more in social work. And if you're more interested in the human body and disease prevention and physical health, I think getting an MPH degree would be better suited for you. But at the end of the day, both of the professionals are helping individuals to be healthier, whether it's physical or mental. And oftentimes people in both of these areas will work together and collaborate on a lot of projects. You may find that there are jobs that you can get whether or not you have an MSW or an MPH degree because of the similarities with the two degrees, especially if you go the macro social work route, because as I mentioned, there is some overlap between the two fields. But I hope this video was helpful. If anyone has any questions, please leave them below. If you have a comment, drop it below as well. And on that note, I will talk to you guys in my next video. See you soon.